It's the Rob Carson Show. Are you ready to be podsmacked? Now, here's Rob Carson.
And here is episode number 37 of the podcast. Glad to be here. Hope you are as well. Been pretty busy the last few weeks. Been doing terrestrial radio on KMOX in St. Louis, which is kind of fun. I've been doing a show, depending on the night, sometimes overnight, midnight to 3, and then sometimes 10 p.m. to 2 a.m., which has thrown my circadian rhythm for a loop. But it's a great station. It's huge. And I'm going to be on. Today is the 22nd of February. I will be on the rest of the week through Friday night, Saturday morning on KMOX, doing 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. By the way, if you didn't hear, my new website is up. It's robcarsonshow.com. robcarsonshow.com. Of course, Facebook at Rob Carson Show as well. Lots of stuff to get to on the show today. Some political, some not so much. I do want to mention that NBC has decided to yank an anti-Trump PSA done by children. This is just, to me, propaganda. I mean, like we haven't seen in a very long time. And I don't think it ever would have been considered during the Obama administration. It's a bunch of children being fed lines, being egged on by adults, probably being told by adults that Donald Trump is a danger or stoking fear in these children. And they came up with this idiotic PSA, which has since been nixed from NBC's website. Here it is.
Dear Mr. President.
Dear Mr. President.
Dear Mr. President.
I'm excited for a political outsider that can solve the disconnect between the American citizens and the legislators in Washington.
Okay, so there's a good thing there, but there's a giant but coming up next.
When you speak on things that make me feel uncomfortable or I disagree with, you make me feel small.
Have you ever had a conversation with him? Did he know you disagreed with him?
Because I know I can't change it.
I want you to know that I don't like your definition of American because I don't seem to fit within it.
Okay, has he defined Americans officially? I mean, is there some sort of an edict? Was it on the Republican Party platform? I was unaware of it.
Most of my family is black. I'm afraid that you're going to hurt some of us blacks.
Right now, you're just kind of in the middle. You're swaying towards bad, but I think you can sway back to good.
You're swaying towards bad, but I think you could be changed back to good. Okay.
You are here attempting to whitewash America.
You're gonna separate me away from my family. And
this to me is just so troubling that they're playing on the fears of children, placed on the children, presumably by the adults in their lives.
I really don't want that because I love them so much.
Notice the music got very heavy there.
You are feared among many. However, you have time to build upon that.
Some of my friends are really scared about you building a wall and the travel ban because a lot of their families live in different places.
Well, maybe next time, just sit down in a quiet room and fully think about what you're going to do before you do it.
Okay, so here's a 12-year-old telling the president of the United States that maybe the next time you decide to enact a policy like the travel ban, which actually identified 7 countries the Obama administration said were exporters of terror, you're telling the president, Mr. 12-year-old, that he should think about his policy before he enacts it?
It's not fair for refugees.
There is no need to garner so much hate for countries based on the actions of a single group or organization.
Okay.
Dear Mr. President, I want you to know that us kids are not always wrong.
You may be the most powerful man in the country, but you are still the servant to every single one of us.
Okay, so there you go. That's the PSA, and NBC had 2 of them, I guess. NBC had 2 of them, and they've since pulled them because they're stupid. And honestly, it stokes fear in children. These stoke fear in children. This isn't just a PSA for adults. This isn't a PSA the President of the United States is going to see. This is just meant to stoke fear in children, and that's what makes it truly despicable. Okay, let's move on to other stuff. President Trump yesterday spoke out against anti-Semitism, has since gotten a lot of heat from CNN and MSNBC. I guess one of the reasons why is that there were a dozen or so Jewish community centers across the U.S. that had bomb threats last week. There was a cemetery in St. Louis where 100 headstones were tipped over in a Jewish cemetery. And it took till yesterday for the president to say something about it, apparently, which makes him a hater.
And for every day of my presidency, I pledge to do everything I can to continue that promise of freedom for African Americans and for every American. So important.
I could see why those kids in that PSA were so terrified.
Nothing more important. This tour was a meaningful reminder of why we have to fight bigotry, intolerance, and hatred in all of its very ugly forms. The anti-Semitic threats targeting our Jewish community and community centers are horrible and are painful and a very sad reminder of the work that still must be done to root out hate and prejudice and evil.
Okay. I'm going to posit a theory on the Jewish Community Center, a strategic targeting via phone calls, terroristic threats. For the last year and a half, we've heard that Donald Trump is an anti-Semite. We've heard that Donald Trump is a racist. We've heard that Donald Trump is all these things that he is not. If he were those things, I wouldn't have voted for him, and I don't think anybody would have voted for him. Very few on the lunatic fringe might have. During the campaign, at campaign rallies around the country, Democrat operatives paid for by the DNC, paid for by Hillary Clinton, paid for by George Soros, showed up at Trump events to disrupt, to get into line early, to start fights, to yell words like Trump is a Nazi, to say that Trump is an anti-Semite. That was a narrative that obviously did not take hold, and most people don't believe it. Now we have a coordinated efforts around the country, ginned up marches, ginned up town hall meetings where people are being bussed in, the same groups that were represented at the Women's March, the leftist Women's Pro-Death March, the anti-Trump inauguration protests. All of these same groups are represented, but they're being bussed across the country, and they're showing up in congressional offices and Senate offices and town hall meetings. Don't you suppose to further a narrative like those kids in that PSA we're talking about? Every one of those kids thinks that he's some sort of a racist or an anti-Semite or anti-immigrant. Do you suppose that the people on the left side of the political equation who've been trying to forward this narrative and don't want it to die may have called those Jewish community centers and made those threats in a coordinated effort? They coordinate hate on every other front. Why would this be any different? I've seen a couple newscasts lately, and there are several organizations that are saying that hate crimes and hate groups are on the rise in the country. Those groups are CARE, which is a radical leftist, which has a leftist organization which has ties to the Muslim Brotherhood, and the Southern Poverty Law Center, which is a leftist organization. They have reported a number of hate crimes, supposedly, that never happened. I believe this is all fake. I don't believe that hate is on the rise in America. It doesn't make any sense that hate, particularly anti-Semitism, is on the rise in America with Donald Trump as the president, because he is a huge supporter of Israel. He's made it very clear we are going to restoke our relationship with Israel. And that didn't stop a debate on CNN. I don't know either one of these people, but it was kind of an interesting debate about Trump and anti-Semitism. It features a political pundit, a Trump supporter, Kayleigh McEnany, and director of the Anne Frank Center, Stephen Goldstein. Now, this is talking about the remarks that I just played from Donald Trump. And Goldstein is convinced that somehow that was, A, too late. He's an anti-Semite. Now, let me just pose this question real quick here. If Donald Trump waited a couple of days after a cemetery vandalism, if he waited from Sunday to Tuesday to say something about it, and he's an anti-Semite because of it, Donald Trump went 8 years without talking about black-on-black violence in Chicago. Does that make him a racist? Here's a little bit of the exchange where Goldstein is absolutely incorrigible and is convinced, even though Donald Trump's son-in-law and daughter are Jewish, he could still be an anti-Semite.
those wanting to give the president a fair chance, you would have heard him condemn anti-Semitism. And I have his exact quote from the first time he was asked this question. He said, "I want peace in this country. I want to stop crime and long simmering racism." That sounds like a condemnation to me. But some people on the left are using the veil of anti-Semitism and the charge of anti-Semitism to further their own political causes. It's dangerous. I agree with Alan Dershowitz fully that we should not be loosely throwing this term around. And I've got to ask you straight on, so you think the president does not like Jews and is prejudiced against Jews? You think that about the president of the United States?
You bet. And do you know why?
Wow.
And wow is right, Kaylee. Do you know why?
Does he hate his daughter? Does he hate his son?
You know what, Kaylee? I am tired of commentators like you from the right trotting out his daughter, trotting out his son-in-law as talking points against the president's anti-Semitism. They are Jewish, but that is not a talking point against anti-Semitism.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Are you kidding me? If he was a true anti-Semite, do you suppose that his daughter would be estranged from the family? Do you know why this guy wants to shout down this McKinney, whatever her name is, Kaylee? Because her point makes sense. It's stupid to think that Donald Trump is an anti-Semite. And it doesn't just end at his daughter. It ends in a genuine rekindling of the relationship and the friendship between the United States and Israel, which was destroyed while Donald Trump was the president.
Putting aside just your immediate discussion here, but it is true that when someone is close to somebody, they can see them differently as they see others. They can see others as another, and they can see a person, well, you are this, but it doesn't matter. When it comes, I mean, if you look at what happens throughout history, that's certainly been true with anti-Semitism and many other things.
Well, he stood next to the prime minister of Israel who said, I've known this man my whole life, essentially, Donald Trump, and he is the greatest defender of the Jewish people I know. And I think it's very sad that we have liberal commentators, Steve in particular, who is using charges, vile charges, like anti-Semitism and racism with no evidence behind it.
Haley's right. The prime minister of Israel did say that.
He did say that. Hey, but listen to what Donald Trump said.
He is a conservative
Jewish
leader of
Donald
Israel.
Trump said next to the prime minister of Israel. He talked about the Electoral College.
So what? Barack Obama. It started out when Barack Obama became president, an insulting photo as he was on the phone with Benjamin Netanyahu and his feet were up on his desk facing the camera. That was a deliberate slight. That was a deliberate insult to Israel. This man sat in the pews of a rabid anti-Semite for 22 years in Chicago. All right? Black liberation theology is largely anti-Semitic. None of these questions were raised. As we watched the relationship between Israel and the U.S. fall apart for 8 years under Barack Obama's leadership, the Iran nuke deal, and suddenly, when you've got a president who wants to rekindle the relationship and be Israel's ally, he's an anti-Semite. It makes no sense whatsoever. No sense whatsoever. Maxine Waters, she's off the deep end. I mean, she's always been a nutbag. But now she's calling Donald Trump's cabinet. He's calling them scumbags. We'll get into that in just a second. But she liked to use, and this was an interview, I believe this was on MSNBC. She likes to use the word Klan, and this is strategic. All right? When talking about the people that Donald Trump is surrounding himself with, she calls them a Klan. I wonder what she's referring to.
Well, let me just say this. Mike Priebus has been trying to clean up for Donald Trump for far too long. He's the one that stuck with him all during the campaign when he was making outrageous statements, when he was basically lying. And so his time is going to run out. He can't continue to try to defend this president who is entangled with this Kremlin clan of his.
Kremlin clan. It's a Kremlin clan. I think she also called him Mike Priebus. Here he is. Sure she is repeating the Klan mantra.
But all of them want them lifted because this clan, this Kremlin clan, is all about getting the oil and gas.
It's a Kremlin clan. Kremlin. That's. I'm going to have to look that up. And here she is calling Trump's cabinet a bunch of scumbags.
And I just think the American people had better understand what's going on. Mm-hmm. This is a bunch of scumbags. Oh. That's what they are.
Those are very strong words,
organized around making money.
Who do you mean by that when you call them scumbags? Who are you talking about?
All of these people who are organized with these oil and gas interests that's in the administration and friends
you're calling the
of
Secretary
the President of the United States, this back channeling that you see, these are a bunch of scumbags.
Secretary
That's
of State, you mean the Secretary of State?
You know, they're criminal scumbags.
United States?
Well, I tell you this, Tillerson is there to get these sanctions lifted.
Okay, so she claims that, and she went on to say that she thinks that Donald Trump is in cahoots with Vladimir Putin to reassemble the Soviet Union. So, okay, sure. Here's something, some food for thought, and I think it's ridiculous, but Microsoft founder Bill Gates calling for a robot tax to offset the loss of jobs done by humans. All right, so you've got all these advancements in automation, and he's suggesting, and he's quoted saying, the human worker who does, say, $50,000 worth of work in a factory, that income is taxed, and you get income tax, Social Security tax, all these things. If a robot comes to do the same thing, you'd think they'd have to tax the robot at a similar level. Mark Cuban says that robots are going to cause massive employment. They already are. I mean, they are to some degree. I've toured the Ford factory in Kansas City, and there are robots that have taken human jobs. You go to a grocery store, they're the ever creeping automated cash registers, and you see the last two live people there. And you're like, okay, it's like live people in music radio. They're disappearing. Elon Musk said that automated robots would lead to mass unemployment. All right? And he said that we need to create a universal wage from the government so everybody gets paid even if you do nothing. That's going to work. That's going to work. I just wonder when robots become self-aware, will they want benefits? You know, maybe a maintenance plan. You can keep your robot doctor and you can keep your plan. I don't know. Maybe a retirement plan for when they get old. And then they'll become self-aware and kill everybody. New Jersey school decided to celebrate Black History Month and consequently upset a lot of people. I guess one of the only things people who are not black can comment on is what black people like to eat, I guess. All right? Now, I'm not saying every black person eats the same thing and every black person eats soul food, but soul food is a part of black heritage. It is. Barbecue is a prime example of that. Barbecue is the food of the slaves. Barbecue was created by slaves who got the scraps from the plantation house. They learned how to season it and cook it low and slow, and they made one of the greatest things in the world. All right, so that's soul food. So this school at Hopewell Valley Central High School gets together with their cafeteria, I guess, service vendor, Pomptonian, and they put together a menu for Black History Month. All right? Fried chicken. Okay, there's a major red flag. You can't say that black people like fried chicken. That's fine. Sure, I like fried chicken. Cornbread. You can't say that black people like cornbread. Sweet potato casserole. Nope. Sauteed spinach, mac and cheese, peach and apple crisp. All of those things were on the menu because they wanted to celebrate Black History Month. Doesn't mean that every black person likes those things now, but these are a part of black history. All right? Well, they are having to apologize now. They're having to apologize. They said, the school district said they'll meet with the company to reinforce our district values. The company's vice president said the suggestion was to do something to celebrate soul food. All right? The company deeply regrets that out of context, this menu may have been perceived by individuals as insensitive or in poor taste. Okay? It's remarkable to me. And I don't know, maybe they should have consulted black people. I don't know. But food is a part of history. And there are foods associated, like German people like German food. They like Wiener Schnitzel. They like sausage. They like sauerkraut. All right? Not everybody does. But if you had German History Month, that's what you'd probably serve in a cafeteria. If it were Italian History Month, you'd serve pasta, you'd serve pizza, you'd serve a lot of the Mediterranean-inspired diet that people in Italy are known for. And by the way, there's a good deal of food tourism that happens in Italy. Would Italians be hacked off if you said, we are going to serve pizza, we're going to serve pasta during Italian History Month? Although pasta originally came from Japan. I don't know if you knew that. Marco Polo brought it back to Italy. So pasta is originally it's a Chinese thing. All right. Oops, there was a slip. I'm a racist. Police in Northampton, Massachusetts are ending its annual High Five Day at a local elementary school. I guess they go to several local elementary schools, and they do this High Five Day on Friday. And they've been doing this for a while. It's a way to connect with the kids. It's a way to make them seem real to kids. Well, the program has been canceled due to concerns that it may make authority or minority students and illegal immigrants feel uncomfortable. While we've received a lot of support on social media, we've also heard a few concerns about the program, probably coming from white people. The department was asked to temporarily pause the High Five Friday, which it did. The superintendent of the school said people were specifically concerned about kids of color, undocumented children, or any children who may have had negative experience with the police, according to the department. The superintendent then decided permanently to cancel the program. Right now, we have a separation between some groups and the police. This was a way for children to interact in a positive fashion with police officers. Police officers, yes, there are bad seeds, but there are a whole lot of good seeds. And all this does is further ostracize some groups from the police. This was a harmless thing. These are people who put on a uniform, put on a gun, go out and face danger, see some of the worst things you could possibly imagine, from being first responders on accident scenes to house fires to shootings to whatever. And these guys on Friday morning, and women, black officers and white officers and other colors of officers, decided to go to schools and do a high five to the kids. Honestly, there are no words. There are no words. Makes no sense whatsoever. Oh, this is funny. This is a story out of Minneapolis. This is the year 2017, in case you didn't know. And if you're a boss, if you have a corner office and you have a bunch of people who are your employees, and you suggest a business lunch, and there are women in the office and men in the office, don't have it at Hooters. Don't have it at Hooters. I mean, nothing against Hooters, but I don't think most women really love going to Hooters. Okay. My wife and I have never been to Hooters. I've been to Hooters maybe 3 times, and I didn't really go just to watch women in orange shorts and halvesy shirts. I didn't. It's like, okay, whatever. I mean, you are bombarded on a daily basis with Kim Kardashian standing naked in front of a mirror. All right, really, girls in orange shorts and tights. So this woman, her name is Marcy Hovkar, 53 years old, works for Molecular Health. There you go. Went to Minneapolis, and apparently one of the office manager, the executive, said that we're going to go to Hooters for this meeting. He said that, because he enjoyed being served by attractive females. Immediately after the meeting, she reported it to management, and she was summarily fired. I believe her immediate supervisor, the guy who suggested the meeting, was fired as well. A lawsuit has been launched. Yeah, come on, guys. I mean, Hooters, by the way, I will tell you, generally the only time I go to Hooters is I go in to get the 3 Mile Island sauce. Have you ever had the 3 Mile Island sauce? It is a great wing sauce. It's hot, but it's good. It's real good. University of Pennsylvania student James Fisher took to the Ivy League school's newspaper to complain that a professor's refusal to acknowledge white privilege was a traumatic experience for him. Fisher claims that the fall of 2016 semester was the worst semester of his University of Pennsylvania experience because a white professor refused to acknowledge his privilege. After one of the professors refused to acknowledge his privilege, Fisher claims he was unable to attend that class for a month, saying he did not want to step foot into another white space until I made sure that my mental health was restored. Oh, this is the perfect snowflake. This is even worse than a perfect. This is a snowflake falling on a 90-degree day. That's how weak this guy is. Fisher detailed his experience in the classroom, claiming that the professor, a white man from the suburbs, cultivated the classroom environment that caused him trauma. There were countless times that his lack of acknowledgement of his white privilege led to some of the trauma that I experienced in class. He says, I remember having an intense conversation after class. I basically told him that what he was doing was traumatic to me. And as someone who has experienced a lot of racial trauma in his life, I would not allow him to continue. He then used the argument that in order to make the class a safe space, he had to protect the voices of all students in the class. So he threw it back at him, the safe space thing, and apparently that wasn't good enough for the kid. What a world, right? Oh, this is kind of cool. There is a U.S. chess champion. Her name is, kind of an odd name, Nazi Paikides. Nazi is the first name. Okay. Paikidze, reigning U.S. chess champion. The Iranian government told her she had to wear a hijab. Okay, had to wear a veil, restrict contact with men in order to compete in the World Championship hosted this year by Iran. Why the hell are they hosting it in Iran? She said, by participating, I would have been forced to submit to forms of oppression designed specifically for women. Sets a wrong example, particularly for young girls interested in chess. And hell yes, I agree. Said, I will not wear a hijab and support women's oppression, even if it means missing one of the most important competitions of my career. She forfeits the opportunity to win $100,000. And I give her a lot of credit for saying, screw you to those people. Also, Marine Le Pen, the leader of France's far-right political party, Front National. They always say far right. They never say far left. Canceled a meeting on Tuesday, which was yesterday, at Lebanon's Grand Mufti, with Lebanon's Grand Mufti, because she refused to wear a Muslim headscarf to the scheduled meeting. Le Pen is a front runner in the French presidential election, is visiting Lebanon. Said basically she's not going to wear it. All right. I personally greeted her at the door of the Edict House and wanted to hand her was a white headscarf. This is according to a spokesperson. She refused to take it. I ordered her to put it on. She refused and said she would not put it on and walked out without attending the previously agreed upon meeting with the Mufti. He's a Mufti. The Edict House regrets such inappropriate behavior at such meetings. Well, you know what? Heck with you. Heck with you. A couple of more stories real quick here. Would you want to hold your heart after it's been taken out for transplant? University of Baylor University in Waco, Texas. By the way, where Chip and Joanna Gaines from Fixer Upper live. I know that because my wife makes me watch that show every night. They are offering patients a chance to hold their own organs after undergoing a transplant. What they do is they keep the hearts, they test them, and they keep them, for research. And it has offered more than 70 people the virtually unheard of opportunity to see their ailing body part and hold it before it was held for further study. Apparently, patients become overcome with emotion. And listen, I've never had a heart transplant. I've got a friend who's waiting on one. Kind of interesting. Do they do this with male to female sex surgery? I don't know, because I'm not sure I'd want to hold that. Not saying it hasn't been done. Okay, it's time for me to get out of here. Guys, if you get a chance to check out the Facebook page at Rob Carson Show, the website is robcarsonshow.com, robcarsonshow.com. There is a lot of good stuff on there. And I also have another Facebook page if you want to talk about something other than politics and pop culture. It's about food. Yeah, I've got a food page. It is Rob Carson's Table. So again, Rob Carson Show is the website, Rob Carson Show. Facebook is the Politics and Pop Culture Show, and Rob Carson's Table is the food blog. Have a glorious day. We'll see you back here for episode 37 soon.
Thanks for listening to The Rob Carson Show. Friend him on Facebook at Carson Show, on Twitter at Rob Carson, and on Instagram, I think Facebook and Twitter are enough for now. We'll see you soon.